Hello everyone, welcome to a special edition of Dialogue over Division with some individuals that seem to be in the middle of both dialogue and division, depending on who you ask. I've asked Tamara Lich, Chris Barber, Keith Wilson to join me today, and they don't know what we're going to talk about. But from my personal experience, after being thrust into the public eye at the blink of an eye, I've seen how people came up with their own versions of me based on something they've seen or heard. So I've asked them to join me because I want them to share their story without somebody else's filter or understanding. That being said, I don't want to put any words in their mouth, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in 5 minutes. I'm looking at you, Keith. Can you all, in your own words, tell me about yourself and why you chose to take action against the government? And I'm giving you about 5 minutes. So maybe we'll start with Tamara.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me today, Eva. It's a pleasure to be here. I got involved in this, I guess, because I was quite concerned about a lot of the draconian measures that I saw my government taking against their own people. Things like people that I knew who weren't allowed to go be with their loved ones when they were passing away, new dads that weren't allowed to be in the room when their babies were being born. It was obviously affecting me personally because of my job loss. Both myself and my husband ended up losing our jobs during that time. And I'd been active advocating for the oil and gas industry here in Alberta for the last few years. So when this opportunity came up and I had an opportunity to give Chris Barber a call, I jumped at it and I gave him a call. We hit it off immediately. Chris has a lot of really nice leadership qualities that I sensed in him right away, and the rest is history.
Thank you for that. And thanks for the short timeline. Maybe Chris, we'll go to you next.
Well, thanks for having me, Eva. My name's Chris Barber. I am a 30-year veteran of the trucking industry. I kind of commonly refer to myself as the guy that likes to yell at the steering wheel on a regular basis because I don't seem to be able to get through to anyone. So a couple of years ago, we had a moment in time that happened when the Canadian government came down on the sector of the trucking industry, essentially shutting us down for cross-border travel. That was my breaking point. That was my straw that broke the camel's back. And with that, we decided to then embark on a journey. And in that journey, I've met a lot of amazing people, including the ones surrounding me here right now. So it's been a life-changing ordeal in the last little while. We've definitely been called a lot of names on social media, which I take as a badge of honor some days. I like to fight back on social media, as many people know. And I don't seem to like to let people get away with the vicious things they say about certain people, including people that I care for and respect. So the fight is long, and it is going to continue for now. So we will keep strong and keep fighting. That is about it.
Thanks, Chris. Keith?
Well, my name is Keith Wilson. I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing law for 28 years. I deal primarily with disputes that involve people who are in fights with forces much more powerful than them, and including governments. I've routinely been called upon to take action against governments. And I've also had experience dealing with a lot of high-profile cases over the years, which introduced me to the perils of dealing with the news media. But I'm also a dad. And my wife and I have 4 kids. And watching what was happening with COVID, the overreaction of governments, the stripping of rights, all the things that Tamara listed, and more, the shutting of schools and playgrounds, emptying of swimming pools, arresting kids for playing ice hockey outside. And I just was at my wit's end. And a lawyer from my past, who I have a lot of respect for, gave me a call. And she said,
Who could that be?
She said, I know some of your skills and you're senior. We need senior lawyers. That woman's name is Eva Chipyuk. So why did I get involved? Eva called. And she fooled me successfully. She assured me that it would require a very minimal amount of my time and she would do all the work. They just kind of wanted the senior guy's name on the pleading, I think. And of course, didn't quite work out that way, but I hold no grudge. I saw the personal effect that these outrageous government policies and overreach were having immediately on my children, my neighbors and my friends and my community and my colleagues. And Eva, with the help of my wife, Donna, pushed me over and said, all right, buddy, get your butt out there on the battlefield. And that's where I had an opportunity to hang out with these freedom fighters that are on this screen. And it's been one hell of a ride.
Yeah, I'll just add on a little bit to that. I very much feel the same way as all of you. Obviously a lawyer, but this is kind of my third time back to law. And I didn't expect to go back to law. I was trying to focus on health and wellness and, taking care of, helping people take care of themselves physically. And then during COVID, I just couldn't sit around and watch things happen. It was more right versus wrong, and the voiceless and the vulnerable and the helpless. And in my legal profession, that's how I did know Keith before. I was representing landowners in Alberta against big oil and gas companies or the government. So it was just always something I felt compelled to do, is try to help people that needed helping. And that's what got me involved in this. And I'm still very grateful at all of it. And I'm so grateful for everything we've been through, but we're going to get into some of that too. And so, general question to everyone: why do you hate the government?
Well, go ahead, Tamara.
You start us off, Keith.
Well, I don't hate the government. I don't hate the government at all. What I hate, and I think is incredibly dangerous, is incompetent and corrupt people who enter government. And Canada has witnessed corruption and incompetence on a scale with the Trudeau Liberals that is really almost unimaginable and unbelievable when described. We can't even keep track of the scandals anymore. As I think Dr. Peterson commented, Trudeau's come up with this neat little trick. Whenever he's embroiled in a scandal, he just gets you to forget about it by going right into a new one. So, we just lost track. So I don't hate government. Governments are needed. Governments, I think, it's just like many good things. It's like desserts, right? Desserts are great, but in moderation. So I think the same with governments. And I don't hate governments. I just hate corrupt, incompetent, tyrannical governments. And that's what we have in Canada.
Anybody else want to add, or was that a...
I agree with Keith. I don't particularly hate, sorry, Chris. I'll be quick. I don't particularly hate our government, but just like Keith said, it's the people that are running it. And I think one of my biggest frustrations right now with them is that we're literally crafting policy, legislation, and laws based on hurt feelings or the potential for hurt feelings. We're now going after people using our law enforcement basically for thought crimes. And we're getting into some very slippery slopes here with a lot of the behavior. Listen, I've never had one person come to me and say, I wish the government would censor my internet more, or I wish the government would censor my news more, or I wish the government could come and take my guns. It's like we've lost touch. They're supposed to be there to represent the people, and they're not representing anybody but their own self-interest, in my opinion.
I'd agree. I would like to point out the fact that I would be criticizing the Conservative government no different right now if they were trying to implement the same policies that the Trudeau government has been doing right now. I was a fan of Harper when he was in office. Towards the end, some of the policies he was bringing in towards the end was pretty detrimental to Canadians' rights and freedoms, and it's just gone downhill from there. So it doesn't matter what party's in government. It's the fact that government is now involved with every aspect of your life, and especially the Trudeau government as of late.
Yeah. Thanks for that. How about now question, why do you hate the people of Ottawa so much?
like where you're going
I
with
don't
this,
hate
Eva.
the people of Ottawa. Some of the
What?
people that I
Some
met in
pretty
Ottawa
cool
were some
people
of the
in
most
Ottawa.
beautiful, kind people that
I
I've ever
agree.
met. Honestly, we had the majority of support from people in Ottawa. A lot of the people that were bringing us fuel and firewood and food and blankets and water were all Ottawa residents. And as a matter of fact, a number of them federal government employees that I spoke with that also weren't happy with the way that their government was running things. So absolutely in no way do I hate those people. They're some of the most beautiful people I've ever met.
Sarah, do you remember down in protest days when the citizens of Ottawa were orchestrating a counter protest and the police had put lines up in front of Parliament Hill? I was going to take part in that counter protest with the people that were against us to try and show some level of unity, but I got extremely busy that day and I missed it. But that was on the agenda to walk down and actually stand with them, you know.
That would have been a beautiful display of unity.
Wouldn't
Wow,
it?
I didn't know
I
about
think so.
that. Yeah.
It's remarkable the number of people from Ottawa that came forward. You know, a lot of people don't know this, that Tom Razzo helped coordinate this. But for a number of the protesters in Ottawa who traveled across the country brought their families with them because in some instances their children weren't allowed to go to school anyway, so they're already homeschooling them. And they were taking a stand for the future of their families and their children. And so it made sense for them to bring them. And a lot of people came very well equipped with motorhomes or fifth wheel trailers or had fully accompanied large cabs on their highway trucks. But so many families from Ottawa came forward and said, if anything happens, bring your family to my home, right? So we had more families offering up their homes as billet homes in the case that we had to pull the families out of the downtown than we had families to pull out. We had, Eva, you'll remember when we got served with the emergency horn injunction on the Friday, the 3rd of February, and we reached out starting at 10:10 p.m. in the evening when we got the idea of getting affidavits from Ottawa residents to counter these awful stories that were being made about the truckers and the protesters. By 10 o'clock the next morning, we had over 100, I think it was 140 residents that had come forward who wanted to put their names publicly on affidavits in the court documents with respect to the injunction hearing, defending the truckers and how peaceful they were behaving and shoveling sidewalks and cleaning things and feeding the homeless. So many so that we had Ottawa residents competing with one another. No. You really want to use my affidavit because I'll be a better affidavit. I'll be a better witness for the court. So there was many. And then also, too, I remember that day we were trying to move Sussex and Rideau. And in the end, when all of our initial attempts through the day failed, all of you guys, we all froze ourselves. And at the very end, something came together, and there was Tamara, myself, Dwayne, and I think Scooby, and all of the police and the tow trucks came, and the big loaders came to move, and we were about to move the trucks. The trucks were ready to go, and who swarmed in? In the hundreds, the many hundreds. It was Ottawa residents who swarmed in to stop the move because they thought the truckers were being forced to move. They didn't realize it was a cooperative thing. So this whole idea that there was so much support in Ottawa, but you'd never know it because it countered the narrative that the government and the legacy media, their allies, wanted to spread.
Yeah, I just wanted to share too, during the convoy itself, it was a little bit active and busy for us, but during the public order emergency inquiry, which was also busy, don't get me wrong, but there were times that I was like, oh, I just can't anymore. I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm going home to Edmonton. That's it. And then there would be an older lady coming with food for lunch, or somebody else bringing chocolates and thanking us from the bottom of our hearts for coming and showing up and being a voice for them. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll stay another day. But the support in Ottawa too, it was just beautiful and amazing. So I
During the
very much,
POEC, Do you remember that during the POEC? I walked downtown Ottawa for 2 weeks nonstop, and I didn't meet one person that was negative. Everyone that I met was cheerful, and that was, a year after the
Yeah.
protest.
In town, yeah. If I were to summarize your main goal to going to Ottawa was that of a concerned citizen seeking answers from your elected officials about what was going on. Would that be a correct summary of your
100%.
reason for being?
I thought we were going to overthrow
And
the
we're-
government. No, I'm just kidding.
We're going to have to delete that
Is that on the
part.
table? I
I'm
don't
just
remember.
kidding. Yeah,
Bob?
you'll hear lots of reasons why we went, but that was obviously our motivation behind it.
I went to try and apply my legal and professional skills and my professional experiences to help Tamara and Chris keep it lawful and orderly, to help deal and manage with the very vicious attacks that I knew were coming, the lies that I knew were coming, and to help the protests stay within the lines of a lawful protest within the exercise of democratic and charter rights. I went there to try and be a calm resource, to provide guidance in difficult decision making. I really tried to be as professional as I possibly could, even though I personally had very strong views. So my going there was a little different. As much as I might have shared the underlying view, I was very much there as you were, Eva. We were working. This was a file. I mean, it was an intense file.
And I was going to add, I went, I don't know, naively thinking, yeah, we're going to go as lawyers. But really looking back at it, I feel like we were crisis managers, just.
Well, lawyers are crisis managers, right? It's sometimes
Yes,
I
right.
guess on steroids
litigation
there.
is just a slow
Yes.
motion that drags on for 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just a bit different, but the experience. So back to you, then Tamara and Chris, because our role obviously was a bit different. But do you feel like you were heard by our elected officials when you were in Ottawa?
Not one little
I
bit.
feel-
No, we didn't. Go
One
ahead,
at a
Tamara.
time, please.
Go ahead. You go ahead, Chris. I'll go after.
I don't feel like we were ignored right from the start. If he was giving us any attention by calling us names, that would have been something. But that was our government was the last one to listen. We had Canadians all across this country standing up for us as we drove across from the West, and the only one that wouldn't listen to us was the sitting Prime Minister and his government, unfortunately.
I would say that we were wildly successful. I don't believe that the government listened to us, but they heard us loud and clear.
What she just said. That's exactly what I was just about to say. Not only did the government hear from all of you involved in the Freedom Convoy and the protest, but they then soon heard from all Canadians. And then they soon heard from the United States. And then they soon heard from Europe and the world. It was, we're not afraid of you anymore. We're not buying it anymore. We all now know we're not crazy. We're not alone. And we are right. And what you're doing is wrong and harmful, you governments, you tyrants. And so did they hear from the Freedom Convoy in the traditional sense of sitting down and having a civil discussion in a meeting room across from one another, or in a restaurant, whether it was at Tim Hortons or something, or even on the street? No. But did they hear from the freedom protesters? Yes. And they heard from them at a volume and a clarity of message that was unescapable for them, and it was effective in dropping the mandates, and it was effective in sending the message, I believe, you try this again, we're not going to play for 2 years.
And then they also had about $22 million reasons also.
Yeah, the money scared the hell out of them. The donations, $10 million from GoFundMe. And then when GoFundMe played its little dirty trick, then Give, Send, Go, 12.7 million. So over $22 million in the course of about 20 days. That sent a message super loud and clear. Over 113,000 individual donors to Give, Send, Go, almost all from Canada, and small donations. That sent another message loud and clear. It really reinforced, it laid it on another layer that because they know, politicians know how hard it is to get your voice. They know how hard it is to get your vote, but they know the hardest thing to get is your money. So when people came forward in droves like that, it scared the bloody hell out of them, as it should have.
And what it was people had come together in Canada, because you don't see that kind of donation and outpouring of support unless everyone wants to work together and is united in their message. So I'm very much with you. They heard it loud and clear, but in a very different way. During Ottawa and times since, I'm assuming there were times where you felt disillusioned or disheartened by what was going on and around you. Why didn't you just give up earlier? Or why haven't you given up yet?
Well, I'm a bit of a rebel, first of all, and I don't give up. Yeah, yeah. I mean, giving up is not really in my vocabulary. And not only that, for my own sake, but this case that's coming up this fall is going to be precedent setting for all the other cases that are going to come after us. And so Chris and I had a saying on our way out to Ottawa, and that was, let's keep our eye on the prize. I mean, the prize just seems to keep changing. I think, you know what I mean? It keeps evolving, but we're still very much focused on that. And like I said, this is going to set precedent for all the cases that come after us, not just for the convoy, but for all Canadians. So we're not going to give up. We're not going. Well, I'm not giving up, anyways. I'm fighting this all the way to the end and then some.
I think I'm a little stubborn, I think, is my thing. I don't like to give up. I like to fight right to the death if I have to, and I'll continue to do that. So, bring it on. We're in this now. You can't back down. You can't show weakness. You need to keep pushing forward. So we've been doing this now for a few years, and my life has drastically changed, I guess. And so is everyone else in this camera right now. But we're dealing with it the best we can. Some days I'd like to go back to the nice and peaceful quietness of what I had before, but then the next breath too, what would have happened if we wouldn't have stood up?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, to give up is to make a conscious decision to accept that which will come if we give up. And that's something that all of us can envision very clearly in our minds, as dark and dystopian as it may be. And we're not prepared to go there. So we've just all demonstrated that. It's just remarkable to hang out with all you guys and others that aren't on this. Is that, we can be on a call and something just outrageously harmful and hurtful or damaging has been thrown at us. And we still laugh and joke. We just kind of go, all right, so this is what they're going to do to us today. Okay. All right. So what are we going to do about it? How are we going to deal with this? What's our next move? We talk about it and we just move on. We're just every day we're ready for them to throw something else at us. And every day we're ready to say, all right, how are we going to deal with it? Let's carry on. So yeah, giving up serves no function. That's good. And they can only wish.
And if I could just add to that, I think a large part of this, for me anyways, is that, like I said at the beginning, I mean, Chris and I hit it off right from that first phone call. And in my opinion, we've been a team right from day one, or from my day one anyways. And so, that makes us stronger. We're stronger together, and we have a lot of very similar qualities. Like you said, we're both extremely stubborn, but we're both extremely tough. We're from Saskatchewan, man. And so, that's another important reason that I can't drop the ball, because he is my teammate. And, if one of us goes down, we both go down, and we can't let that happen.
I think one of the major discouraging things I've noticed in the last while is the people that attack, especially Tamara on social media. Here's a lady that's faced, far more jail time than most of these other people in this movement, and the continuous attacks that keep coming, and she can't defend herself. I mean, how fair is that? So I'll be that voice to stand up for my friend and do what I can to set the truth proper, or at least to fight back somewhat. I'm capable of doing that, and I'll continue to do that. I enjoy it a little bit.
We know.
We know. Yeah, and we're grateful.
Yeah.
Many.
I think we've had, a lot of moments where, well, I have anyways, where I felt disheartened and disillusioned. But what I will say is that, it's less from the shenanigans that we've seen come at us from the government or law enforcement. Like Chris was just saying, it's the people from within your own movement that come at you and so viciously attack you. And at the end of the day, I mean, I think that's why people don't do this. They don't do this stuff because of those kind of attacks. And, these are like people that I thought were family or friends and that I really cared about and that I thought cared about me. And, as far as, that I would still never give up because of that. But I will say, out of all of it, jail time, crown prosecutors, police officers, judges, it's the people from within that hurts the most. And that's the most discouraging. But, we fight through it and we just keep on keeping on.
Well, the way that, we were literally on a battlefield in the convoy in Ottawa in terms of the nature of the dynamic of the events. And, when someone comes along as an ally and a volunteer, you trust them. You don't have a lot of choice. And as time carries on, you realize in an upsetting way that some of the people you trusted were never there for the reasons everybody else was there, and they were there for their own financial gain or their egotistical gain, their narcissistic needs. And it doesn't take long for that to manifest. So, but, and one of the things that I think equipped Deva and I to be legal counsel on this is we've both done group work where you represent groups of people as a client. Most lawyers will do it once and never do it again because you get infighting, right? Well, where don't you get infighting? A board of directors on a corporation has infighting. Political parties have infighting. The condo association has infighting. The board of directors of the Elks Club or the Lions Club or the Rodeo Association has infighting. It's just called normal. But when you're involved in something as high profile as this, the infighting is seen by so many more people, and it seems to be more controversial than it really is. It's just normal. I testified to that when I was asked about it at the public inquiry, and I think the lawyer was like, well, what do you make of this, that there was this infighting? And I said, it's called normal, unfortunately. Right? I never encountered a not-for-profit board that I have been either a paid legal advisor to or a pro bono legal advisor to that didn't have infighting. Every single one. It's never happened. And if there was a period, a month or two, where things were going really good, I'd always say to the executive director or the chair, I'd say, well, get ready. Something's going to happen because we've gone 2 months without some director or two fighting. So that's just normal.
The full moon effect, isn't it? This
Oh,
full
God,
moon effect
we're all
time. We can always tell when the full moon's approaching.
100%.
Like you can just, it's like, oh, so-and-so is beaking off on Facebook. Look outside. Oh, there's the full moon. So, yeah. Full moon effect.
Yeah, I have to say it is.
The medication wasn't delivered properly.
Whatever it is, it really, that is the most disheartening part. I have to agree with Tamara there at that. And like he said, you think that these people are your allies or your friends. And I am usually such an open book and just okay to start conversations and make friends with anyone. And then now I'm a little bit like, should I be a bit hesitant now with these people that I think are your friends? So anyway, I'm with you on that. Question back to you all. when you went to Ottawa, did you expect to get this much attention personally?
Not even a little bit. I say in the category of did not see this coming, this is like number one for me.
I still remember going to Medicine Hat to pick you up on that morning, on that cold winter morning, thinking, I just pray that there was like somebody on the side of the road to see us off, right? That was there going to be trucks that showed up. Something, please. Like, yeah.
Just one truck.
And then it's
how
funny.
did that work out for you, Chris?
Yeah, it's
Like there was a lot of people, right? Is what I'm getting at.
there was a lot of people there, yeah. Even Medicine Hat. Remember leaving Medicine Hat, the amount of people they want to support, and then all of a sudden we were thrust straight to the front.
Yeah.
Keith, did you want to?
No, I'll confess, I kind of knew what I was getting into. There was just no way. I was watching how this thing was taking off, and I had no idea that the call was going to come that one. Was it Tuesday afternoon, Eva? We'd arranged the Zoom call on our Peckford Charter Challenge travel mandate case, and all these other people were in, and I was host, and I clicked on you, and I said, who are all these other people? And you said, let them in. And I'm like, okay. And no, because of the speed at which it was growing, the convoy, and how it just was the news. Like the legacy media was all over it. And not just in Canada already. Like within the first few days, by the weekend, it was already an international news story. And I was like, oh boy, yeah, all my existing clients are going to know that where I am next week. So I kind of knew it was, or I shouldn't say I knew. My assumption was this was going to be a very high profile. And my assumption was that it was going to hurt at times, and that I was going to, the forces of power were not going to retaliate against each and every one of us in their own different ways. Tamara, who spent 49 days in jail, knows what I'm talking about. Chris, who spent a day in jail, knows what I'm talking about. Both of you who are being sued for $400 million in a class action lawsuit from a personal injury lawyer in Ottawa know what I'm talking about, and everything else that's happened to you, from pay providers canceling your accounts out of the blue, and PayPal declining you services, and inability to get normal financing, and having your bank accounts frozen, and all the things that I'm not going to list that have happened to Eva and I. I didn't really think all those bad things would happen, but I didn't think, the saying from a movie, I can't remember which it was, but first guys through the wall always get bruised. And we were all the first through the wall in our various roles. So we've got our fair set of bruises, but that's okay. We just keep going.
But my story is a bit different because I was by your side the whole time and nobody knew who I was. And then launched
into the smart one in retrospect.
Yeah. And then everything changed when I asked Justin Trudeau a few questions. I don't know.
Like, why does...
But yeah, you still haven't beat me on TikTok, though, Eva. Remember that?
What's that?
I said you still haven't caught me in followers on TikTok yet, and that was their little thing there, where you were going to beat me in followers. But we tried.
I was giving you all a break. Don't worry. This is now my coming out.
Well, you're about to catch up to me on Twitter. You went to Ottawa with like 2,400 followers, and now you got like 44,000. So.
Yeah. I guess people like what I have to say. Imagine that. Truth, information,
Weird.
That's the goal. And dialogue, also another big factor. So we kind of talked about this, but we haven't really gotten right to that. But I think everyone on this call has been called a hero at least once since all these events. Is that why you went to Ottawa, to be a hero? Was it for the fame and the fortune you went to Ottawa? Tell me. Tell Canada.
I still haven't seen the fortune yet, but it definitely humbled me a lot. In the the amount of people that stand behind us and support us, and that is a huge thing. As many of you know, I'm out on the highway on a regular basis, still driving truck on a daily basis and visiting with people, and it's common that you get pulled over on the side of the road, or you get noticed in a restaurant or a fast food chain, and you get told thank you for what you did, and there's so much public support out there that and that's really humbled me. Of course, I can speak for myself when I say that it's changed me as a human being. Of course, I believe.
100%. I never set out on this journey to have people recognize my face or know my name. And I don't feel like I'm a hero. I just feel like I'm somebody that, wanted to help the real heroes. It was the truckers that stood up and took that stand. But not only that, I mean, the other heroes are the Canadian people, the ones that stood on the side of the highways and held their flags at the overpasses and donated $50 even if they didn't have it, just because they wanted to feel like they were a part of this. I mean, those are the real heroes, in my opinion. You guys for stepping up. What did we find out at the inquiry? 138,000 lawyers in Canada, and 2 of them actually stood up and risked their lives, their families, their reputations, and their jobs. That's heroes to me.
Thanks for that, Tamara. That's very kind. No, I mean, I've been involved in very high profile cases. I've had my name and my picture, on the front page of national newspapers and even American newspapers a number of times over the years with the types of cases that I've handled. Years ago, I was so prominent in the news that my youngest would get nervous if I went to Canadian Tire and didn't have my ball cap on because I'd get recognized too many times. And it's actually quite a pain in the ass because maybe it was a Sunday morning and I didn't really want to shave, or a Saturday morning and it's like, oh, I got to shave and got to put a nice shirt on in case somebody recognizes me. In other words, fame is actually quite overrated in my view. And in terms of the fortune, oh my God, I have pretty damn profitable law practice through the nature of the work that I do and how hard I work and the results I generate for people. And if I was interested in fortune, when Eva called me initially, said, hey, do you want to do the Beckford case? I would have said, Eva, who? Sorry, I think you got the wrong number. Bye. And hung up. So that wouldn't have worked because then I would have heard a tap at my door. She would have said, hi, I'm here. Something wrong with the phone. So I thought I'd come over and see you in person. So no, I didn't do any of this for fame or money. And initially when I got back, particularly after the inquiry, I get people coming up to me and it's dropped off substantially. And I like that better, to be honest. I like being able to walk around and as much as it's nice to have someone come up and say nice things to you, it's actually, I hate to say it, maybe it doesn't sound grateful enough. It's actually nicer, in my experience, just to be able to, people just look at you and you're just the same as the person standing beside. So I never did any of this for fame or fortune, that's for sure.
Yeah. Chris, did you say I think you already gave your thoughts. Yeah. So I've built you all up nicely. Now be prepared to be torn down because I'm going to read to you some of the mean tweets. And I'm going to start with you, Tamara. Tamara Lich is a domestic terrorist who attempted a coup d'etat in Ottawa and failed. She should be in prison. Thinking she is some kind of hero or a role model is ludicrous. Tamara Lich is not even close to being a Canadian hero. She organized a terrorist occupation on a city. She's ignorant, ill-informed criminal. Tamara Lich is a disgrace to Canada. The right charge for her is sedition. She's lucky she still hasn't been tagged in this list. She's no martyr. You break the law in Canada, you pay the price. Maybe if you get elected, someone will try to overthrow you. We'll cheer for them. So, terrorism, it means
John from upstairs.
I thought that sounds like Katie Telford.
Who?
Katie Telford.
Yeah, could be.
Staff.
I have the tweets, so they're really there. These are really what people are saying. And just so everybody is clear, terrorism is when you use unlawful violence and initiate, especially civilians, in the pursuit of political arms. Tamara, were you charged with terrorism?
No.
Okay, so I just wanted to be clear. So after hearing these attacks on your character, how does that affect you, your family? Like, what are your thoughts when you have to hear these things over
It
and
doesn't.
over?
It doesn't affect me, honestly. I mean, I guess everybody has their days if you read lots of it and it'll bring you down, but for the most part, I think they're laughable. These people don't know me. Clearly they're uneducated and lazy. I mean, people even that accuse me of stealing money or hiding money or what, it's a Google search. If you really want to know anything about this case, you can Google it. The FinTrack report, the forensic audit that we had done, all this stuff is completely accessible. So if you are that lazy that you can't even do your own research, then your opinion makes no difference to me.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Chris, are you ready to hear yours?
Oh, this is something uncommon because I do. Do I get to engage with you or the person that said it?
Well, no, I want to hear your response. But
Okay, let's go.
you get a lot more on TikTok. These are all from Twitter. So Chris Barber is a big trucker terrorist from Saskatchewan arrested, and a lot had to do with your arrest. We'll get his room ready at the PA pen. They're nailing the seditionist leaders tonight. Criminal Barber, criminal arrested. Morons. Zero sympathy for Ottawa convoy organizers. This makes me so happy. Hashtag law come up. Hashtag flu trucks clan go home. So sedition, number one, is conduct inciting rebellion against the authority. Chris, were you charged with sedition, for everyone to know?
Not to my knowledge. No, I was not.
Yeah. It was mischief, which is like riding wheelies in a parking lot. So just wanted to clear that up for most people. And so, Chris, I know we laugh about this a lot, but do these tweets affect you, your family? Has it been difficult, or do you just have to laugh about
No,
it?
I think because the support is far greater than the criticism. So I feel somewhat sad for these people out there that they get their daily dose from their legacy media, and they've learned a false narrative. If anybody come up to my door tomorrow and tried to call me that, the first thing I'd probably do is offer you a beer or a coffee, and we could go sit it out and have a chat about it and see if we could come to some kind of you know. And if we couldn't go your way, I'll go my way. My day was just as good before without that person in it, so I'll continue to go along with it. But I'm more sad that they've been fed a false narrative and they believed that. It's unfortunate, but it is the way we world today. It's easy to do a quick research on there. I've got, I'm a businessman in the Saskatchewan area and I truck internationally, so I've built a reputation before this whole thing. So if they're going to go off of something that CBC or CTV told them, then I pity them, unfortunately. But they don't bother me. It's just another. I've been through this for quite a few years online, fighting back and forth with the left. So I'm quite aware of what the tactics are.
Okay, well, Keith, are you ready to hear?
Bring it on,
some
baby.
of your-
Let's do this.
So lawyer Keith Wilson likes Nazis. As I've said, along with the convoy folks were white nationalists. This just shows Nazis worldwide, they like to hang out together. Keith Wilson, lawyer for the Freedom Convoy, that thought they could just get the Governor General to overrule the elected officials. That thought, so that was your advice. You were giving that advice. Another important note is Keith Wilson is the Freedom Convoy lawyer, so take his comment with a very large grain of salt. Keith, are you a white nationalist Nazi?
No, and unlike Antifa, who spray painted the tailgate of one of the protest white pickup trucks with a K, 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 4Ks. They couldn't even insult the truckers accurately. No, in my career, I have represented visible minority groups, and I've been called bad names for that in years past. These types of attacks, in my view, we would have an expression, all of us, you'll recall, that we would all use at different times when, especially if these types of personal ad hominem and other attacks would come in, the expression was bombs on target. In other words, whatever we're doing, they're not liking. We're being effective. We're exposing their corruption. We're exposing their fascist tendencies. We're exposing their tyranny, and they don't like it. So they're calling us names, and they're trying to discredit us. So whenever these things come in, I always view them strangely as a little bit of a badge of honor or tactical feedback that whatever we're doing right because we're getting attacked. If we're not getting attacked at all, then that means whatever we're doing is not effective. The other thing is that these attacks come at us from people because some people, many government officials of all levels of government, engaged in reprehensible, tragic, harmful, life-altering actions. The suicides, the depriving of family members from being at the side of holding the hand of a dying loved one, of a mother, of a child, of a sister, a brother. That's something these people live with forever. And it was completely unnecessary. We knew it at the time, and all the scientific evidence has confirmed it was unnecessary. The learning losses of taking children out of school, the social development, the social anchors that we deprived them of from going to hockey tournaments and going to graduations and weddings and funerals and celebrations. These people did terrible things, and their best way of coping sometimes is to attack and discredit those of us who are exposing them. So it doesn't bother me in the least. Like Chris and Tamara, we usually just laugh at them. Gives us an opportunity for a deep belly laugh, which is good for the soul.
Yeah, I'll read some of the ones I got too, because while I think we all say it doesn't affect us, we do see it. Everything that we experience will affect us to some extent, but some of these are just so weird too. Like here, Eva Chibiak, lawyer for the road clog. So that was a new one I didn't hear. Plagrats, vanilla insurrectionist is full of shit. On the far left is cartoonishly inept, but supremely self-absorbed, Eva Chibiak. That's me, another convoy lawyer. I was an Eva girl, but no longer. I am very disappointed in your and Keith Wilson's tactics to divide and conquer the truckers. You lawyers have hurt Canada and what the truckers accomplished. So, I'm with you guys. I went into this probably more naively maybe than everyone, at least definitely way more naively than Keith, thinking, here I am trying to help out some people that need help and what bad can happen. And just the attacks have been, and it's, and
that's where I'm lucky because I'm not allowed on social media, so I don't have to see it like you guys do, right?
Well, that's what I was
I'm just over here in blissful ignorance, really.
But what I was going to say, you just led to it, is you're in reality. This is not reality. Nobody's ever said this to my face. And the one person I actually knew had these thoughts, and I challenged him in this building, he ran. He ran away. He wouldn't engage. He didn't say anything. All he said is that maybe I don't deserve anybody's respect.
Could you imagine someone trying to do that to Chris's face and realizing how big he is in real life? Because he's so proportional. He doesn't look that big.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah. Standing beside Tamara, and you're like, where's Tamara? I just see the top.
That's one of the common things I get hit with that on a regular basis. The common thing that I get hit with is, holy, you're a lot bigger in person than you are on social media.
Yeah.
And I get the opposite.
Yeah.
You're so little. You're so big.
It's like when we have to do that
close protection babysit role on you guys, right? Our tactic, if it's a crowd, is I get on my tiptoes to look for Chris, and if I'm trying to find Tamara, I look between everybody's legs. It's like, okay, there's Chris and there's Tamara over there.
Yep.
So true.
Okay, super serious question. Are you controlled opposition?
Yes,
Canadians
and
want to know.
I'm also a paid plant.
Anything
I'm
else?
also working undercover for the Russians. What else? What am I missing here, Chris? There's got to be some more.
You're a Fed, right?
I think my
Yes,
wife,
totally a
my
Fed.
my wife would really love me to be controlled at some point, but even my wife can't control me. So good luck with any government.
Let alone the opposition. Like, what does that even mean? Like, control?
I don't
opposition?
know.
So it either means...
But I've heard
Usually it means we have nothing else.
Well, I mean, it either means you're like a plant or a Fed, or it means they've got something over you. So even though you're in the role of opposing the government and the tyrants, they control you. And I mean, give me a break. Like, come on. It's just pure nonsense.
Well, actually, I got a message just before we joined this from a person on Facebook Messenger telling us that somebody was talking shit about Tamara and I on Facebook today, saying that we sold out to the NDP party. That was a new one.
Oh, that's a new one.
Yeah.
NDP.
You want to talk about controlled opposition?
Because me and Jagmeet are like this.
So what would the control mechanism be? You know, one of the control mechanisms might be, look, we know that you were one of the spokesmen for the Freedom Convoy. We know that you hold yourself out as having been heavily involved in the Freedom Convoy. However, we will not charge you criminally, unlike we have Tamara Lich and Chris Barber, but we need you to do X, Y, and Z. So if there is any controlled opposition out there, it would seem to be a disqualifying characteristic to have been charged and facing one of the longest. This will be the longest trial in Canadian criminal law history for someone charged with mischief. A trial that starts on September 5th in Ottawa and ends sometime in October, right? So if there's any controlled opposition out there, you got to start with the people who claim to be a leader and claim to have been all this, the heart of the action. They're not charged. So I'll just leave it at that.
Interesting note there, Keith. So this is going to be the final question, and this one is a bit more serious, or like just some thought to it. I think that we've gotten through this a lot just with humor and support. I think Chris said that. But what is your message for Canadians moving forward? Is there hope? What would you like to see happen? Is there something you'd like to see happen? Or are we okay? We have to just keep doing what we're doing.
I think there's
Anybody
always hope.
ready to take that
And I think that that hope right now for me comes in the form of watching all this stuff that they're trying to ram through against the wishes of Canadians. Clearly they're panicking, and that's a result, I feel, of the Freedom Convoy. So many of their shenanigans were exposed. And so I think my message to Canadians would be like, don't give up. And there's nothing to fear but fear himself. Fear is the main tool that they're using. We're going to freeze your bank accounts. We're going to come get your kids. We're going to take your insurance away. We're going to shame you in the court of public opinion. You know, when people, and we see it all the time, and I'm sure Chris does too, lots of people will come up to me and say, oh, I support you and everything that you did, but I just can't say anything because of blah, blah, blah. But that's where they got you. And you will be a slave as long as you're afraid.
I think somebody came up to me here a few months ago and said, you know, Chris, we really support you, or I support you, but you know, I have a mortgage and I have children that I have to look after. And my response was, man, so do I. At what point do you think that I don't have a mortgage or children or a family and a farm and a trucking company and everything else right now that's at risk of being destroyed because I'd had enough and stood up? So what's it going to take for that silent 40% of Canadians that are just sitting back that just want to be left alone? At what point do they say, okay, that's my straw that breaks the camel's back? I see the Muslim community now stepping up with concerned parents and going after school boards right now, which is a huge step forward. You've got more unity there now, and that's, I think, where it needs to go. And I think the more people that get involved with your local school boards or your local, rural municipalities or your city council, that sort of thing, and that's when change starts. You get involved with your government, and then that's how you push forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. Keith?
Where there is no hope, there are fears and there are nightmares. Where there is hope, we have dreams. And when I look at the number of Canadians who've realized and self-reflected over what's happened in the tyranny and the oppression and the overreach of government and the harms to our families and our communities and our children, then they've said not again, no more. So there's been an awakening in Canada that politics matter, that people need to get involved. And I really have a feeling that the tyrants are running out of road. They're about to hit a dead end. And the Canadians that were once respected around the world for our goodness, for being in a country that's free, are going to retake our country back.
Yeah, I very much agree with all of you, and I think that what the Freedom Convoy showed and what you have demonstrated through your actions is that when we come together, anything is possible, and citizens can come together, and there's always an opportunity as long as we're working together, talking to one another instead of disparaging one another. There's so much opportunity and possibility, and I'm hoping that Canadians see that this was just the start of something really incredible. And we're going to end it here, but we're going to continue a little bit more for the paid subscribers to Twitter, where we're going to have a little bit more of an engagement. So thank you all for joining these lovely yet very interesting, I was going to say controversial, but that's the whole point of this. They're not controversial. Regular Canadian citizens that became engaged. And this is what we need in Canada. So I encourage you to join and continue to be engaged. Thanks for joining. Thank you for joining me on Dialogue Over Division. Come on, Canada, I can't do this alone. Let's work together for a brighter, more united Canada.